Good morning, everybody. It's me, Mitch, in the kitchen. Going to cook up some bacon and eggs and talk about the subject for today. A lot of confusion about adding carbs if you've been on carnivore for a long time. I'm still on the fence about this, but I still haven't completely discounted all of the talk and all of the evidence that really credible people in our community are putting out. I had a great live stream this morning and the subject came up, but we didn't get into it in that much depth. After my live stream, I went out and watched that video with Lisa Wiedemann and Zane Griggs, and gotta tell you, there's some credible arguments for adding carbs back to carnivore. I still think that carb addiction would be the main reason not to do it, but I haven't discounted the fact that it may not be a bad idea if you can figure out some way to do it or add some carbs in that don't trigger your addiction too bad. And I have to investigate further. I have to investigate further. My thoughts right now have led me to look back at my past experiences in the past 3 years and let you know on some of the things that I have to try to consider. The biggest question, and I don't think that a small amount of carbs would hurt you. I'm not one of these people that thinks that you got to be in ketosis all the time. For me, it's not about that. It's about weight loss. It's not about weight loss anymore. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about my health. It's about my health. Now, I have some blood tests coming up at the end of the year, which is fast approaching. And I'll be curious to see what my fasting blood sugar are. Last year it was fine. My A1C last year was 5.1. My thyroid hormones were fine. And some of the things that Lisa and Zane talked about had to do with thyroid issues and other things, and every one of us is different. But I'll be curious to see this year, and I know I'm not really hot on blood tests, but I am open to them, and there are certain blood tests, like my vitamin D level. I don't really concern myself with my cholesterol, but I haven't completely given up on the idea that maybe it might not be a good idea for some of us after years on carnivore to add back some carbs. And I'm waffling on this because I added back some carbs. I added back more carbs than I would like to think that I should have added back when I had my stroke in February. The first 3-4 weeks of March, I consumed, certainly, more than an adequate amount of carbohydrate in the hospital and in rehab. I actually re-addicted myself to carbs, specifically ice cream. Now, I was recovering from a stroke, so I can't really tell you how it affected how I felt, but I felt horrible. I had no energy. My addiction was hounding me day and night. When I got home from the hospital, I was a carb addict again. I was not feeling good. Everything from joint pain was coming back. All the things that I had fixed on carnivore seemed to be going in the wrong direction. And I'm trying to recover from a stroke. I was determined, probably driven by my addiction, to eat ice cream. So I tried to make a concession and I went with the Kilt's ice cream. But I bought blueberries. And I started making blueberry ice cream. And I could not stop eating that. It felt worse and worse. When I went through the 3-pound bag of blueberries in a day or two, I put an abrupt halt to it. I said, nah, you got to give this up. This is not heading in the right direction. I went back on strict carnivore. Cut out dairy, cut out everything but meat. Within 2 or 3 weeks, I started losing the weight I was gaining. I started to feel more energy. I think my stroke recovery accelerated more. And I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. I could be on my feet for a good length of time now with no fatigue. But I keep seeing this stuff and I keep hearing the conversation. And then this whole episode came out with Dr. Kiltz. And everybody's convinced that he is changing his diet. We talked about that. He's not changing it that much. He's never been that strict where he wouldn't have a little something once in a while. And I always say, if you're not a carb addict, if you're not the equivalent of a carb alcoholic, you can do that and you'd be fine. If I could eat a couple blueberries, some French fries fried in tallow or bacon grease, and not immediately start craving carbs to drive me off the wagon, I wouldn't be concerned about my health. So again, I keep coming down on the fact that it is primarily addiction driven. And then you have to make a choice. Is living a carnivore lifestyle with your body through gluconeogenesis making all of its own sugar, even if that's not optimal for long term, even if that taxes, raise your cortisol, and the other things that Lisa Wiedemann said in the video I just watched, is that worse than being driven back into carb binging and eventually back to the standard American diet? I don't know. I don't think it's better. I certainly don't think you're going to be healthier. There are certainly people in this world who don't eat carbs in certain climates. There are carnivore people in our community. Doctors even, who don't eat carbs, don't seem to be suffering. And if their blood sugar is 10 points higher, what does that do to your A1C? Is it really that harmful for your blood sugar to go up maybe 10 points higher than it used to because you're in gluconeogenesis more often? If you don't have any feelings of stress, supposedly from high cortisol, what's better for your long-term health? Certainly, what allows you to keep living without the cravings and the addiction. I'll let you sit on that question for a second, and I'll ask you to excuse me while I beat my eggs. And now, a new first for you. I'm going to use my right hand to beat my eggs because it's working now. That, my friends, thank you, that, my friends, was 1,000% improvement from the last time. That's encouraging for me. I'm firmly convinced that being pure carnivore has helped me in so many ways that it's very hard not to consider all of the advice and noise that you hear from everywhere in our community. And I think it boils down to this. I think it boils down to the fact that it is an individual thing. And that in order for you to know that if you need to add carbs back in, and even as important, what carbs should you add back in? Oh, wow, look at that. What carbs should you add back in? You have to know yourself. Draw on your own experiences, like I'm trying to do, especially the experience of me adding back those carbs because of my hospitalization and the fact that I don't care how hard you try, if you eat hospital food, you're going to eat carbohydrates. Plain and simple. They put it in everything. They adulterate everything. I tried to eat bacon in the hospital. Turns out it was very high sugar turkey bacon. I wanted the eggs cooked in butter. I doubt the people in the kitchen paid that much attention when they normally always cook their eggs in seed oils. I got re-addicted to ice cream. I carried that addiction almost the first month I was home. Because, let's face it, addiction does have that hold over us. So the first thing to consider is, can you eat even broccoli or any other carbs without triggering your addiction? I probably could eat broccoli, but I hate broccoli. Then I say, well, maybe there's a reason why I hate broccoli. Maybe it's not really that good for me. Those kind of things just screw up my digestive tract, which after a lifetime of being screwed up is finally working like it's supposed to. Do I want to fool with that? For me, I think the decision is probably pretty well made. Probably pretty well set in stone. For you, nobody can give you advice. You have to experiment. If I hadn't had that, and this is what I think, if I hadn't have had that experience with carbs that I had in the hospital, I probably would be experimenting right now. And maybe you might want to experiment, but I wouldn't do that until you've been on carnivore for a year or two. Even a raw vegan can stay healthy for 3 or more years before it finally catches up with them. So the fact that I've been carnivore, except for a brief period of time, for 3 years, is why I'm thinking about this now. But I'm in no hurry to do it. I'm going to wait until the first of the year and see my blood tests. And I better pour this bacon grease out. That's an awful lot of grease in there. And I'm going to wait to see what I suppose I could take my blood sugar, but no, I'm in no hurry. That's another thing about changes like this. You don't need to make them overnight. You don't need to make them tomorrow. Things don't happen that fast in our bodies. Okay. And get the eggs cooking. So for me, I pretty well answered my question. I put any decision that I'm likely to make on hold until I get my blood test results after the first of the year. I'm not interested in most of them, but I am interested in those that might show that maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to do what they call flexing every now and then. Then the main question is, with my carb addiction, can I do that without screwing the pooch? And if you want to answer that question for yourself, it requires one thing: that you know yourself. You know your limitations. You know your level of addiction. Nobody can give you advice. They can scare you into doing something, get you thinking about doing something, but nobody can know whether it's the right thing to do unless they know you. The problem is, how many of us really know ourselves that well and don't delude ourselves into thinking things that are the way they are because it's the way we want them to be. I came to terms with my carb addiction quite a while ago. I view it as a very real thing, and I acknowledge that when it takes hold of me, I have no control of myself. I will rationalize any kind of behavior and always find an excuse to start binging on carbs and ice cream and whatever. And that's how I govern my actions. I'll let you know. I'll let you know exactly as I change my mind, come up with different ways to look at it. But for right now, it appears that I'm going to stay pretty strict carnivore and leave the carbs out of it, leave the dairy out of it. But there's an old saying, never say never. And I always leave myself open to say, I used to think this, but now I think that. And here's why. And I'll always tell you why. So, my friends, just that easy. Got myself my first meal of the day, some bacon and eggs. I'm going to go eat this. And you, my friends, take the rest of the day off and eat meat.